Good afternoon. My name is Jimmy. I'm an alcoholic. It's great to be here today sober. I'd like to tell you a little bit about what happened to me before I drank, during my drinking, and after my drinking. And I had my first drink at age 15. I remember it vividly, and it's a long time ago. It was a Knickerbocker beer in a pond near where I grew up in Peabody, Mass. And the older guys were playing cards, and they gave myself and a couple of my friends 2 or 3 cans of this Knickerbocker beer. We went into the bushes, we drank it. I hated the taste of this stuff, but I drank about a can, and I loved how it made me feel. You know, for the first time on this planet, I felt comfortable with me. And I remember going home, skipping down the line to the sidewalk saying, wow, now I know why people drink. I didn't like the taste, but my first experience with alcohol was positive because it took me out of myself, and I finally felt comfortable with me. I didn't drink the next day or the next week or for a while, but firmly implanted up in my head was booze was good, and I wanted more of it. And I started drinking on a more regular basis probably in my junior year of high school, and that continued into my senior year. Went to a junior college, drank there, associated with the people that drank the way I drank, and you know, I had pretty good control of this stuff. You know, I thought it was my right to drink, and I drank on weekends, or if there was a holiday during the week, that meant that, you know, for example, Tuesday night, Wednesday's a holiday, we'll drink. And I was able to drink, and I was able to function at that time. By that I mean I was able to get up in the morning, I was able to go to school or work, and, you know, I was pretty much in control. But as I look back, as time went on, little by little by little, I started to lose control, and drinking alcohol became more and more important to me as time went on. You know, and I continued to drink, and I started to withdraw from my peers and friends because I used to like to drink alone. I would sit in my car and have somebody, before I was legally old enough to buy the stuff, grab me a 6-pack of beer or whatever, and sit in my car and drink this stuff, listen to the radio, and sort of fantasize about, you know, what I was going to do and what I was going to become and how life was going to be for me. But, you know, after about the 4th one, I forgot, you know, why I was there and what I was doing there. And but I loved to drink. I loved to drink. I never really acquired a taste for beer, but I loved what it did to me. And it took me out of me, and it made me comfortable with me, as I said. And following a couple years of school, I went into the service. Again, my drinking increased. I associated with the guys that drank the way I did. I was fortunate. I was in a position to do people favors. I never charged them any money, but it was always kind of understood that they owed me. And, you know, so people watched out for me. They watched my back. They covered for me. And I could have got into a lot of trouble in the service, but I was enabled by my peers, and they, as I said, they watched out for me and covered me. So I escaped a lot of consequences for my behavior because of the people that took care of me. I got out of the service, and I said, I won't drink as much. I never said I wouldn't drink. I said I won't drink as much. And the girl that was my high school sweetheart, we were still going out, we were going to get married, and she thought she could change me. And we ended up getting married. We had a big wedding, and of course I'm drinking alcoholically, but I don't know it. She doesn't really know it, and she did change me. I got worse. And, my drinking became more and more important to me. And this marriage was to last a few years. I put her through hell because of my drinking. And had she done to me what I did to her, I would have got rid of her a heck of a lot sooner than she got rid of me. But she loved me. She hung in, but then she couldn't take it anymore. And she divorced me. And poor me, I had a good job with an oil company. We were living in Connecticut, and it just didn't work out. My mother, I called my mother drunk. I was on a drunk when my wife left, and I was without a car because she took the car, and I figured, what do I need to work for? So they came looking for me on the following Monday. I didn't show up for work. I didn't call or anything. And I was coming back from a package store in Connecticut. And they saw me, and they said, you got a problem, either resign or, we're going to fire you. So I resigned. I came back to my parents' home. My parents said, we love you, we need you, we want you, you're welcome in our home. And within 3 or 4 days, my father told my mother, either he goes, meaning me, or my father was leaving. So, I left. And I was resentful and bitter. And, my wife didn't want me, my parents didn't want me. My older brother took me in on the condition I not drink. And I drank. And I was out of his house, too. He had 2 young kids at the time, and he didn't need his active alcoholic brother there. And, I said active alcoholic, but I really didn't know what an alcoholic was. I didn't know that I had this disease of alcoholism. In the first step of AA, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, and our lives had become unmanageable. I knew my life was unmanageable. I was in the process of a divorce. I was unemployed. I was soon to be unemployable. I became a guy on general relief welfare, and, so I knew my life was unmanageable. I couldn't get the powerless over alcohol piece. I couldn't get the fact that when I put a drink of alcohol into my body, I have to have more and more and more. And one's too many and 22's not enough. Although I'm drinking the drink I'm drinking, in my head I'm always thinking of the next one. I'm always looking at my watch or a clock. What time is it? What time do the Packies close? How much money do I have? I can never get enough alcohol. And I was a blackout drinker, and then I would pass out. But again, I couldn't get this powerless piece, and when I came to AA, people would say the first drink gets you drunk, and that used to make me crazy, because I would say to myself, of course, I never got drunk on one drink in my life. What are they talking about? But it set up what Dr. Silkworth in the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous calls this phenomenon of craving, where when I put the first sip of alcohol into my body, it sets up this craving for more and more and more. And I didn't get that for the longest time. But I kept boozing and I kept losing. And my sister-in-law came to me, and she said, I talked to someone we know in the Council on Alcoholism, you need to be detoxed. And I didn't even know what a detox was, but I didn't have much going for myself at that point in time, so I said, all right, I'll go into this detox. So I went to the Green Street Detox in Lynn, and people said, there were all men there. There wasn't co-ed at that time, and a lot of older guys, and they said, kid, we spill more booze than you drank. And, so I concluded I didn't have a problem, that, I was just going through a rough time. And I remember telling the head nurse there, Mrs. Murphy, you will never see me here again. I learned my lesson. And, she looked at me kind of strangely and, didn't say much. But see, she knew what I was fighting, and I was clueless. And the thing is, I meant what I said to her. I meant that you'll never see me here again. I meant that I was through drinking. But the power of the illness, 3 weeks later, I was back there, a total basket case from the use and abuse of alcohol. And that was to be my pattern for the next, I don't know, 4 or 5 years, whatever it was. But, boozing, losing, ending up in detox, getting arrested for protective custody all over the North Shore, settling for less and less and less. In order to drink, I settled for less. And the disease of alcoholism, as I learned in the AA program, is a threefold illness. It's mental, it's physical, and it's spiritual. And that mental part is that mental obsession, once I have that first sip, to have more and more and more. And the physical part is this compulsion that comes along with that I got to do anything I got to do to get another drink of booze. And the spiritual part has nothing to do, as I understand it, with God and religion. It's simply a settling for less. And I settled for less for a long time in order to drink booze. And I just figured this is the price I have to pay, and I paid a heck of a high price to drink alcohol. Physically, it did a number on me. I became a guy that had, as I said, blackouts, and then I began to have grand mal seizures, hallucinations, DTs, and I'm in my middle 20s, and I'm always looking around for somebody worse than me, saying, oh, look at that woman over there in the corner. She's got a problem with booze. When I get as bad as that guy, I'll do something about my drinking. And I know today they were looking at me saying when they got as bad as me, they would do something about their drinking. But in true alcoholic form, I was the last guy to know. If you looked at the vehicles I was driving in those days, you knew it was a drunk's car. It was dented, the back door was chained shut, there were empty cans rolling around on the floor, and you didn't have to be Einstein to realize that the guy driving that car's got a problem with alcohol. But I was the last to know. I was the last to know that alcohol owned me, and I just kept banging my head out there, and the walls got harder and my head got softer. I had many attempts at Alcoholics Anonymous. My problem wasn't stopping drinking. My problem was to stay stopped. I'd stop for 5 days, a week. One time I stopped for 5 months, only to pick up again. And during that 5-month period of abstinence, I took up smoking marijuana because what the heck, I wasn't drinking, and I figured, I need to take the edge off, so I smoked pot and I went to AA meetings. And people in the fellowship told me that as an alcoholic, I couldn't substitute one drug for another. And my attitude was, they can't, I can, and they don't know what they're talking about. But I know today they were absolutely right, because when I ran out of pot and couldn't get any more, I needed relief. And I went to the corner store, and after not drinking for 5 months, I picked up a 6-pack and I was off and running again. So I learned this is an all or nothing deal. Either I have to stay totally abstinent from all mood or mind altering substances, or I'm in trouble. And like every lesson I learned, I had to learn the hard way. I couldn't go by the experience of others and cut my losses. I had to drink every drink that I drank, and I had to lose everything that I lost. And that's just how it had to be for me. But, got married, as I said, divorced, just bounced for a period of my mid-20s. I like to say I pretty much lost a decade there. Not that I was drunk every day, but I was mocus. Alcohol had me under its control. And I accomplished some things, but somehow I went back to college. I graduated. I, you know, worked for a while, but then everything went, and it was me and booze didn't work anymore. And that was a tough reality for me to hit, that even though I was willing to give up everything that meant anything to me, I couldn't pour alcohol into my body anymore. And boy, was that a tough reality, as I said, to reach. And I had nowhere else to go, but I came back to AA, and I didn't come back because I thought it would work for me. I knew it worked. I saw people sober that I drank with, and they seemed to be having better lives, but I just couldn't get it. And, you know, finally I realized I had to drink every drink that I drank, and I came back to Alcoholics Anonymous in February of 1975, and I've been coming ever since. You know, I ended up at Mount Pleasant Hospital. I had been there before. I had been detoxed 65 or 70 times. As I said, I experienced the physical tortures of this illness: grand mal seizures, enlarged liver, hallucinations, blackouts, grayouts, and you know. But I came back, and I've been coming ever since. You know, I've been coming ever since. And I'm not going to sit here and say getting sober was easy for me. It was the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life, you know, putting that drink down. But I learned we put it down for one day at a time, you know. I was in Mount Pleasant, and I remember the counselor kind of interviewed me on the way out the day before I left, and he said, you know, what are you going to do, and la-da-da-da-da, and I said, I guess I'm going to go to AA, you know, like, and kind of said to me, you better, because, you know, that's really the only shot you got. And I didn't quite buy it, but I asked him, I said, you know, not for nothing, but how am I going to stay sober at my children's weddings? You know, I totally did not have this down to one day at a time. And I wasn't married, and I didn't have any kids at the time, but that's the role that alcohol played in my head. It was very important to me. And, you know, I married a daughter, and I didn't have to drink. And it's a miracle. I had an open bar there for a couple hours, and when the 2 hours was up, I closed the bar. Had I been drinking, I never would have closed the bar down, you know, but, you know, I've learned to live without alcohol on a daily basis. You know, Alcoholics Anonymous has given me back my life. It's given me a second chance at living, one that I never thought I could have. I was so devastated by this disease that I wanted to off myself, but I didn't have the courage to do it. And thank you, God, for that. But, you know, getting sober, I came back to AA. I didn't drink. I made many, many mistakes, but I didn't make the crucial mistake for a guy like me of picking up that one sucker drink. And to this day, I haven't. You know, I mentioned my children. I lost a son through addiction. He was 25, and he died from an overdose of benzodiazepines and heroin. This New Year's, it'll be 9 years since we lost my son. And it was tragic. And I had always feared that would happen, and I would tell him that. You know, I said, I would look up to him. He was tall, and I would say, I don't want to bury you, son. And he would look down at me and kind of, you know, tap me on the shoulder and, oh, don't worry, big guy, and, you know, and this. But like me, he didn't have a clue as to how badly he was hooked into his addiction either. And on New Year's Eve day, I got a call saying that my son was gone, and it was tragic. But the power of this program, I never even thought of picking up a drink. You know, I got the call, it was about 1:15 in the afternoon, and that evening at 5 o'clock I was at an AA meeting with one of my brothers who's also in the fellowship, and we were at a meeting over in Beverly, and I was able to do what's expected of a man that loses a son. I was able to comfort my wife and my daughter, make the funeral arrangements, and so on and so forth. And, you know, there's not a day that goes by today that I don't think of this kid. But, you know, his disease took him to the grave. Mine could have, it should have. I was just blessed that it didn't, you know. And I mention him as hope that maybe his passing can give somebody else out there hope that this thing happens. You know, this is a disease of denial, and it's a major issue and problem in this country and in industry, and you know, it just, the only illness I know that will tell me I don't have it, you know, it will tell me I don't have it, and I will deny it. And I was certainly in denial out there for a long time, but eventually alcohol convinced me I couldn't drink it. And I had to have enough pain and enough trouble for me. And to let you know what my life is like since I stopped drinking, my wife that divorced me, we got remarried. We had 2 beautiful kids. I have a beautiful daughter that's blessed us with 2 grandchildren. She's due to have her 3rd in April. And it's unbelievable, you know. She nor those children ever saw me pick up a drink. They never saw that dark side of me out there when I was actively using alcohol. I've been gainfully employed for many years. I've been blessed to work in the field of addiction, and I've been doing that for over 30 years. And just trying to share with people what I've been given, you know, and offer them hope like people offered me hope, you know. And people offered me hope for a long time before I got this thing. I just wasn't ready to hear the message. And when I came back in 75, I didn't hear anything differently than I had heard previously. It's just that when I heard it, when I came back the last time, it made sense to me. And for that, I'm grateful. I like to say to people that are struggling with addiction, have you had enough trouble for you? Do you like what your drug of choice, whether it's alcohol or other drugs, do you like what it does to you when you drink it, smoke it, shoot it, or snort it? You know, and I didn't like what drinking alcohol was doing to me at the end. You know, it just, it took and it took and it took. And it stripped me naked of everything positive in my life. But, you know, I have a good life today. I have a comfortability with self today that I never had. I wake up in the morning, I know who's next to me. I know where my car is. If I'm supposed to be to work, they got a pretty good idea that I'm going to show up. I'm responsible today. I'm dependable today. If I tell somebody I'm going to do something, I generally do it. And when I was drinking, you know, if there was a drink involved, forget it. I would go that way. And you know, but I don't have to drink today. You know, what a gift that is for a guy like me. You know, I've been blessed, and you know, I'll be celebrating this February, God willing, 42 years of continuous sobriety. And that's a miracle, you know. That is an absolute miracle. And the way I work this thing is the way I was told to work it when I came around. They said, go to meetings. They said, ask a power greater than yourself to help you a drunk stay away from a drink. And if you're successful, thank your higher power at night. And I choose to call my higher power God. And, you know, most days I ask. Occasionally I forget. But I always try to thank him at night for a day of sobriety. I go to meetings because I learned that people that go to AA meetings on a regular basis generally stay sober, and people that don't. So, you know, I want to stay sober. I like going to meetings. I go to 3 or 4 community AA meetings a week, and I look forward to going. I look forward to seeing the people that are there, and it's just a nice place to go and relax for an hour, and just, be able to express my gratitude for another day of sobriety. If you're having trouble with booze, come along with us. Or if you're having trouble with anything else, there's all types of programs. But they told me in AA there was a wrench to fit every nut, and I could identify with that. When I first came, I was resentful. This guy, he ought to be sober. He's 50 years old, because I was in my mid-20s. But, the trouble with getting sober a long time is you have to get old to do that. But I've just had a good life, and it's all as a result of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous and staying away from one drink for one day. And I couldn't picture life without alcohol. What do you do if you don't drink? And today, by not drinking, I live a life second to none. And it's here for anybody that wants it. If you're willing to do the work, you get the results. And I'm not going to sit here and say getting sober was easy for me. It was the most difficult thing I ever did in my life. But without it, I would have no life. And I'd like to thank everyone for being here and for your patience and for listening. And as I said, my name's Jimmy. I'm an alcoholic. Thank you.